So this next overview is on environmental sociology. As we said at the start of the semester, sociology tends to insert itself in every aspect of um, our daily lives, and the environment's no exception. Big questions, of course, are how does social life relate to the natural environment? How does human activity harm the environment? How do environmental factors impact inequality? How can we create a more sustainable society? In traditional societies, life is close to the land. We use natural resources, people walk, they hunt and gather, and they make only superficial changes to the environment. Obviously, Western culture is not a traditional society. Often attributed spiritual significance to nature, um, they feel connected to the land. Modern society is different. They exert far more control over their surroundings, or try to at least. They experience agricultural and industrial revolutions which have changed the world as we know it. They harness technology, which we talked about in the last chapter, to transform natural resources into social goods. How does the environment shape behavior and social outcomes? Well, Marx, Engel, and Diamond were more deterministic. That is, they believed that the outcome is already determined ahead of time, material conditions that are fruitful starting point for understanding societal development. Remember, Marx was a socialist. Parks and Burgess, of course, remember them from Chicago, and they were more into the ecological niche that humans fit into, creating the zone system in Chicago. Human behavior can be largely understood as a social adaptation to their particular urban area. So instead of being deterministic, it really is more a function of how people fit into their environment. How has human activity harmed the environment? Well, there are lots of contemporary environmental problems, including climate change, the depletion of resources. For example, coal mining, which is something that's too far away from Illinois, strip mining. It also includes the greenhouse effect, the buildup of carbon dioxide in the environment, intensifying the warming of the earth, and of course global warming. Just looking at pictures of the great ice flows in Alaska and Arctic and Antarctica, and seeing how some of them have all but disappeared. And that's all because of human activity. What natural resources have been depleted and why? Well, probably the most obvious one is water. And water in the next 100 years will go from something we take for granted to something that we're very conscious about. Farmable land. With human sprawling, people are building homes on land that normally would be used for agriculture, and also losing land that's set aside for wild animals, encroaching on their natural environments. Forests, of course. Animal and plant species are disappearing rapidly because of human activity. And of course, fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. Um, and you could ask the question, why are air and water pollution more of a threat in developing countries? Well, because they have to live with the air pollution. They have to live with water pollution. Toxic air from auto and industry causes smog and acid rain. A depletion of the ozone layer leaves less protection for humans from harmful sun rays. And of course, water pollution, unaffordable and unavailable clean potable water in developing countries is always an issue. And in some third world or first world countries like the United States, it's an issue as well. Think about what happened in Flint, Michigan a couple of years ago with the heavy metals in the water. Question 3, how do environmental factors impact inequality? Well, the environmental movement, like Thoreau, John Muir, Kit Carson, the Cuyahoga River fire in Ohio, the first Earth Day is another environmental movement, the Environmental Protection Agency under Richard Nixon, the Clean Water Act, and the Bush refusal to sign the Kyoto Protocol, and of course, subsequently Donald Trump pulling out of other protocols. And of course, something that affects us locally is fracking, pumping fluids into existing oil wells to get out gas. All of those have an impact. And of course, with the implied goal of environmental justice, achievement of equal protection from environmental hazards for all people, regardless of their race, class, or geography. So, because we're all sort of in this and connected together. An anti-toxics movement, like not using pesticides and other things that can cause health and death in certain populations. Good example, that's Love's Canal in upstate New York. It was extremely polluted. And of course, people of color activists, local environmentalists presented as a violation of people's civil rights. So putting up housing, public housing in areas that are environmentally contaminated might be an example. And of course, there is a social dimension to natural disasters. In 1995, close to home here, the heat wave in Chicago that killed hundreds of people, a structurally determined catastrophe that could have been prevented. Hurricane Katrina, which was a huge natural disaster where several thousand people died, especially poor people, because of flooding. Blacks and elderly were more likely to die with higher death tolls concentrated in New York's black communities because they were low and below the water line, which most of New Orleans is anyway. And of course, the Haitian earthquake in 2010, substandard housing infrastructure caused a high number of casualties. There were other ones that were even more pervasive, like the Exxon Valdez oil spill, and of course Chernobyl that affected literally tens of thousands of people around the world from radiation fallout. How can we create more sustainable societies? This is quite a challenge. We need to look at consumption, production, and if it's sustainable. Elric talks about the impact of a given group of people has on the environment. It's a function of the size of the population multiplied by its degree of affluence and its level of technology. So countries that are more advanced, that have high levels of income and affluence and large populations have a bigger impact than countries that don't. Schneiberg talked about the treadmill of production, that is, you make more so people consume more, which makes people make more. And at some point, that is not sustainable. There's no silver bullet, that is, to take care of our issues with sustainability. It's going to take some practical, everyday, down-to-earth solutions. And technology might be one of those, by like using renewable resources, like electric cars, solar panels, wind energy, etc. Nuclear power is one of those options, although it's fraught with other issues. And of course, using hybrid vehicles. Politics plays a big role in sustainability, especially promoting green technologies. cap and trade programs like were proposed during the Obama administration. And of course, what individuals can do is change their lifestyle, use green alternatives, maybe ride a bike or walk, make determinations about where you vacation at. If it's a long distance, it's highly energy intensive. How often and how many cars you drive, if they're efficient automobiles.